I'm Jeremy Fawcett from Platforum, and I'm joined this morning by Adrian Grace, Chief Executive of Aegon UK. Adrian, good morning.
Good morning.
And we're going to be discussing the evolution of long-term saving and the impact on advice. So Adrian, we're all aware of a huge amount of regulatory change, legislative changes and technology changes. Can we just start by talking a little bit about what the impact on the way that consumers access investments has been?
Yeah, look, I think the demand for advice has never been greater. Pensions freedoms and what's happening in terms of the regulatory changes has brought on a new boom for advice. But I think that in itself is creating a couple of changes in terms of the landscape. The first is the emergence of the haves and the have-nots, the people who can get access to advice and who advisors want to support, and those that can't get access to advice and can't afford the advice. And I think you're emerging into two different segments of the population. And then the other emerging trend is the need for omni-channel. People are starting to take advice and guidance from different sources. Yes, financial advisors have a huge role to play, but also people are increasingly going online and looking for solutions in a different way from the way that they have done historically.
Okay, and you mentioned the pension freedom. So could you talk a little bit about the opportunity for financial advisors around the pension reforms?
Yeah, I think pension-wise and what the government's done is a great step forward, but the challenge is that this is very generic. And what is really clear is that individual circumstances mean that financial advisors have a huge role to play in tailoring and bespoking solutions for the individual needs. The blurring of lines now between employment and retirement means that these are complicated decisions for individuals which cannot be done by generic advice capabilities. So financial advisors have a huge boom opportunity to be able to step into the breach and provide the sort of complex solutions that individuals need to optimize their tax and their overall financial planning.
And what about the all-important engagement? How do we get better engagement with consumers?
Yeah, I mean, the easiest answer is, well, why don't we put more tax incentives behind it? But we all know that is not the trend and where the government's going to go. So we have to engage with customers in a variety of different ways and on the basis, on the terms with which consumers want. Whether that's digitally by creating more engagement type tools or in the workplace through things like auto-enrollment and getting people to start to think. But the most important thing is getting people to understand where they are in their retirement planning and then starting to think through how can they achieve the goals that they want to achieve and what are the ways in which we can start to quantify where people are in terms of their planning. And as you know, we've started to do things like that with our retirement planning score. But this is the key. You have to engage on a basis that people want to engage with you.
Okay, great. So we're about to kick off another major review from the Treasury and the FCA, so the Financial Advice Market Review. What would you like to see coming out of that?
I suppose in a word, transparency. I think there's still a lot of opaqueness around advisors, charging methodology and who charges what for what. At the end of the day, a lot of the regulatory issues that have been caused historically is because there hasn't been transparency of charging and what that looks like. And I think as an industry, RDR has brought us to a better place, but I do think there's an awful lot more we can do to help consumers understand what they're really paying and how they're paying it. And I think that will help the overall industry to regain a lot of the trust and confidence so consumers go into an advice situation knowing full well what they're going to pay up front.
Okay. Now, Adrian, you're going to be speaking at Platforum 2015 on the 1st of October, which is our 9th annual conference. So that's going to be an opportunity to step back and discuss many of the big issues in the industry at some length. Financial advisors are very busy at the moment. There's a big regulatory burden on their time. Why would you say financial advisors should take a bit of time out of their schedule to look at some of these broader issues?
I think what Platforum's done really well in the last few years is really been at the head of the curve in terms of some of the new innovations and creativity in terms of business models and technology. And the world is changing at a rapid rate. I think advisors can learn a lot from coming to a conference like this and understanding a lot of the new techniques in which they can drive their administration costs down, add added value to their customer bases, and importantly, just make sure that their business models are up to speed with some of the new innovations and technology that are happening. So yes, I know there's a big regulatory burden for all of us, but it's amazing what you can pick up at a conference like this, and I'm delighted Platforum are doing it.
Great, thank you. Adrian, Grace, thank you for your thoughts, and we'll look forward to seeing you at Platforum 2015.
Thanks very much indeed.